For the citizens of the ancient world, the ultimate goal in life was fama, a deeply held desire to earn glory and secure a legacy that would be remembered long after death. The people of Pompeii achieved exactly that, but through a catastrophic, sudden burial they never could have imagined. Before the year 79 AD, this was a thriving, chaotic community of around 20,000 people. Situated in the heart of Campania Helix, the fertile, sun-baked region of southern Italy, it was a dense urban grid filled with bakeries, workshops, and wealth. We usually reconstruct ancient history through the monuments of emperors and the texts of the educated elite, but Pompeii's plaster and stone preserve the arguments, shopping lists, and boasts of ordinary bakers, businesswomen, and die-hard gladiator fans. The ruins offer something much rarer than a monument to disaster. They provide an unfiltered, perfectly paused record of daily human life on a single day in the ancient Mediterranean. This floor plan of the House of the Vetii illustrates how that economy worked in practice. With a sprawling Tuscan peristyle and dozens of adjoining rooms, it was a massive estate owned not by aristocrats, but by former slaves who had built a fortune in the agricultural wine trade. The interior walls reflect that accumulated wealth, covered in highly elaborate fourth-style frescoes depicting mythological scenes against deep red backgrounds. Underfoot, intricate black and white geometric mosaics and opus signinum floors projected the family's hard-won social status to anyone walking through their corridors. But this prosperity existed alongside a constant, unrecognized danger. In the year 62, a massive earthquake shook the region, splitting statues and toppling buildings. To the residents, it wasn't a terrifying but survivable event, just another tremor in a naturally restless landscape. They rebuilt their walls, expanded their shops, and continued trading. Their focus on social mobility and commerce obscured a geological reality. They were living on a waking volcano. When Vesuvius erupted, it fired 3 cubic miles of debris 20 miles high. For 18 hours, pumice fell from a towering umbrella pine cloud. Then the column collapsed. Pyroclastic flows raced down the slopes, suffocating the city and burying the grid under 6 meters of ash. We know the mechanics of this timeline because of Pliny the Younger, an 18-year-old observing the disaster from across the Bay of Naples. He carefully documented the creeping darkness and the death of his uncle, a naval commander attempting an evacuation by sea. His vivid, highly detailed letters provided volcanologists with a precise description of the explosive phases. Today, similar catastrophic events are officially classified by scientists as Plinian eruptions. For centuries, historians accepted a date passed down through medieval copies of Pliny's letters, placing the eruption on August 24th. Yet the physical evidence buried in the ash told a different story. Excavators found victims wearing heavy clothing, fresh autumnal fruits like chestnuts, and newly sealed wine fermenting jars. In 2018, this faint charcoal message was discovered on a plaster wall inside a house undergoing renovation. It contains a date marking mid-October. Because charcoal is a temporary medium that fades quickly, it was almost certainly written just days before the volcano erupted. The ruins also correct the assumption that no one made it out alive. The 18-hour initial phase gave many time to flee. Families like the Vibidius successfully escaped Herculaneum and resettled in nearby towns, continuing their traditions of funding temples and public works. Written accounts are fragile, subject to the errors of copyists and the assumptions of later eras. The actual physical remains of Pompeii serve as a hard cross-examination, clearly proving the disaster happened later in the year and left a complex trail of survivors. After lying undisturbed for 1,700 years, the buried cities were rediscovered. Initial excavations in the 1740s were essentially treasure hunts, haphazardly tearing through walls to extract statues and fine art for European collectors. The approach shifted in the 19th century with archaeologist Giuseppe Fiorelli. He noticed that while organic material had decomposed, it left perfectly intact hollows in the hardened ash. By pouring liquid plaster down into those voids, he could capture the exact shape of whatever had decayed. This technique, later updated with glass fiber, allowed excavators to capture the exact postures of victims, shielding their faces or attempting to crawl during their final moments. By filling the empty spaces left by decay, Fiorelli's method transformed academic archaeology into a deeply emotional encounter, giving physical form to the human cost of the disaster. Now exposed to the elements, Pompeii faces new threats. Weathering, water damage, and the heavy foot traffic of 2.5 million tourists a year require intense, constant conservation to keep the walls from crumbling. And the source of the original devastation is still there. This is part of the array of scientific monitoring equipment constantly tracking Mount Vesuvius, an active volcano that currently threatens millions of modern residents living along the Bay of Naples. The stone streets and broken pillars sit in permanent, silent contrast to the massive peak looming on the horizon. Pompeii remains a vivid record of everyday life in the ancient Mediterranean. But it also stands as a permanent warning of human fragility against geological forces, and a reminder of our enduring drive to build, trade, and leave a mark before the ash falls.